After my husband's first love came back, I saw the question he answered on the website. What is it like to marry someone you don't love? He said that I didn't love my wife, and even though she was wholeheartedly devoted to me, and took good care of the family, I still thought of my ex-girlfriend. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it. Someone commented below, if you are not anonymous, you are not afraid that your wife will see and divorce you. He said, no, she can't do without me. He didn't expect that the next day I put the divorce agreement on his bedside and left quietly. When Cora Jordan returned, I found the question Cliff Stewart answered on Yahoo. What is it like to marry someone you don't love? He is not anonymous, and his avatar is still a photo with Cora Jordan's back. I guess it's just the feeling that life is a pool of stagnant water. I don't love my wife. After I broke up with my first love, my family forced me to get married quickly, and I was disheartened at that time, feeling that as long as it wasn't that person, it would be the same as anyone else to marry. It just so happens that my wife has always liked me, and we have known each other for a long time, so I proposed to her. I remember the day when she burst into tears of joy and asked me if I was dreaming. To be honest, I feel quite guilty. Over the years, she has been devoted to me wholeheartedly, and she has taken good care of everything in the family. My fingers twitched slightly, and I continued to slide down. He said, but I don't love her. I've been thinking about my first love all these years. I know it's not a thing, and I've tried to like her, but I can't help it. Someone below commented, you are not anonymous. You are not afraid that your wife will see you and divorce you. His tone was as firm as ever. No, she can't live without me. It was as if there was a thorn in the heart that had been hidden for years, and the edges and corners had been smoothed out by the flesh and blood, and it no longer stabbed as sharply as it had been at the beginning. It's just that there is still a fine and dense dull pain, which cannot be ignored. I smiled wryly. Look, he knows me so well. Even at this point, he knows that I can't live without him. In the evening, Cliff Stewart behaved as usual. We were like a couple who respected each other, and after he routinely complimented me on the delicious food I cooked at night, he went to bed and turned around to look at his phone. The 1-meter-8 bed is not big, but we are back to back, and there is an empty space in the middle that cannot be crossed. I suddenly remembered the day he proposed to me. He thought I was crying with joy, but he didn't know it, and my heart was full of sorrow at that time. He and Cora Jordan have been together for 7 years, from the age of 17 to 24, and they have had the best years of each other's lives, accompanying each other from youth to maturity. After graduating from college, Cora Jordan also wanted to study abroad, and got an offer from her ideal college. However, Cliff Stewart's father was seriously ill at the time, and he was asked to take over the family business and stay in the country. Probably long-distance relationships always don't end well. At first they can still persevere, but then the distance is far, all kinds of problems have increased, and the time difference makes the two people have less and less time to communicate. Coupled with the fact that Cliff Stewart had just taken over the company, and was busy every day, Cora Jordan, who was alone in a foreign country, also found that, when Cliff Stewart was needed, he would never be there. There are more and more quarrels between the two people. Finally, in a quarrel a year later, the conflict broke out completely, and Cora Jordan broke up impulsively. Originally, the matter could still be reversed here, but they have been the best in the crowd since they were children, and they are very proud, and no one will bow their heads. Cliff Stewart was in a time of grief, when his father had just died. In the end, it is still drifting away, but I know that he can't let go of Cora Jordan all along. In fact, when he proposed to me, I knew that he didn't love me. He was just upset at that time, and wanted to find someone to deal with the marriage, and it happened that I was the best in all aspects, so he chose me randomly. I understand all of this, but the saddest thing is that even though I knew it, I couldn't help but want to say yes when he proposed to me with a random ring that his secretary bought. I couldn't wipe away my tears that day, and he thought I was crying happily, but I was just sad. The sad thing is that I know he doesn't love me, but I can only love him. I don't know whether it was intentional or unintentional, but as soon as Cora Jordan returned, the college class president organized a class reunion. I haven't seen her for 3 years, and Cora Jordan is more beautiful than before. She was wearing a Morandi-colored dress, her long seaweed-like hair was scattered, and she looked casual and elegant. But Cliff Stewart didn't look at her from the moment she entered, just sat next to me, and served me food. When he was at home, he never peeled the shrimp for me, but now he puts the peeled shrimp in my bowl with concern and smiles softly, "Eat more." Cora Jordan on the other side paused, and the smile on her face slowly dissipated. I suddenly felt a little funny. In this seemingly 3-person play, the 2 of them performed with love, and only me, as a clown who was not worthy of being on stage, watched coldly. After 3 rounds of drinking, a bald male classmate who had drunk high laughed at Cora Jordan drunkenly. "Cora Jordan, why are you better looking than before? If you don't have a partner now, if you don't, would you like to consider me?" In the afterglow, Cliff Stewart's body froze. Cora Jordan laughed. "No, but I don't think we're a good fit. Why is it not appropriate?" The bald man was a little annoyed by the rejection, and he didn't choose to speak. "You don't still think about Cliff Stewart, and plan to protect others like Jade, do you? Everyone is married. Let me tell you, it's hard for a woman to find a partner after she is 25 years old, and you still think you're a little fairy." Cora Jordan's smile was a little uncontrollable. "You've drunk too much." Another female classmate who didn't think it was a big deal to watch the excitement took out her mobile phone. "Maybe someone is interested in Lang Yu's concubine." I saw Cliff Stewart answer a question when I swiped Jihu before, saying, "What kind of experience is it to marry someone you don't love?" "Cora Jordan, this is you and Cliff Stewart, right? You still have this picture in your circle of friends?" As soon as they heard that there were melons to eat, all the students took out their mobile phones. "Where?" Even Cora Jordan looked at Cliff Stewart with a complicated look in her eyes and slightly red when she saw that answer. Cliff Stewart looked back at her. I shuddered and shivered uncontrollably. Everyone knew that my husband was actually in love with another woman. In an instant, I felt as if I had been stripped naked and paraded through the streets, and I wanted to get up and run away immediately. After a long time, Cliff Stewart finally spoke. His voice was as usual, but if he listened carefully, he could notice a slight tremor inside. "It's nonsense. My wife and I are fine. Let's eat." My classmates nodded and put away their phones, but for the next meal, I could feel countless eyes falling on us. All that stayed with me was sympathy and ridicule. It was probably the hardest meal I've ever had in my life. Towards the end of the show, Cliff Stewart left "I'll go to the bathroom," and got up and left. After a while, Cora Jordan also went out. Quite a few people looked at me, consciously or unconsciously. I don't know what it's like anymore, so I can only pretend that nothing has happened, and continue to eat with my head bowed as if it were mechanical. After the end of the session, all the students left. I waited a long time, but I didn't see Cliff Stewart come back, so I had to get up and leave. But as I walked through the hallway, I suddenly heard Cora Jordan's crying voice. I looked through the shadows. I saw Cora Jordan hugging Cliff Stewart from behind and crying. "But you have me in your heart." Cliff Stewart frowned. "You're thinking too much. I'm already married," Cora Jordan said with tears in her eyes. "Then why don't you dare look back at me? What do you say about that answer, Cliff Stewart? You don't love her." She sobbed. "I know it's not good, but it's clear that we were together first. If it weren't for her, maybe we'd have reconciled a long time. Cliff Stewart, I'm here for you. I wasn't sensible before. Shall we start over?" Cliff Stewart's body stiffened, his expression covered in shadows, and he couldn't see clearly. After a long time, he turned around inch by inch and hugged Cora Jordan. The 2 of them kissed almost frantically in no one's place, as if they wanted to vent all the emotions they had suppressed over the years. And I watched silently, letting the blade break my heart. I don't know why. It's clear that they are intimate, but it is me who runs away in a hurry. When I ran to the dim street lamp and touched my face, I realized that my face was already damp and cold. That night, Cliff Stewart came back late. He seemed to be trying to explain something to me, and opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. I smiled as usual. Let's rest first, and I'll talk about it later. He let go of his frowning brow as if relieved, and was just stunned when I carried the quilt to the guest bedroom, and did not stop me. Late at night, I opened Yahoo. Cliff Stewart's answer has a lot of comments below, probably all of them are classmates who ate melons tonight. And his reply still stayed at that sentence. No, she can't live without me. Outside the window, the night fell through the mist, and the veil of the curtains was blown up by the wind. I sat up and pulled a divorce agreement out of a drawer. Over the years, Cliff Stewart has been a good husband even though she doesn't love me. All his wages and dividends will be handed over to me over the years. In fact, over the past year, he has begun to change slowly. He would kiss me before going out, and he would rub my ears and temples during the intimacy before bed, and he would affectionately call me by my nickname. When I had menstrual cramps and couldn't sleep, he would rub his warm hands and rub my stomach. Several times when I woke up in the middle of the night, I found that he was already sleepy, but his hand was still moving. At that time, I thought he was going to fall in love with me, but when Cora Jordan returned, I realized that everything was just my delusion. I divided the money I had saved over the years in two, signed the divorce agreement, quietly put it on the coffee table, and then dragged my suitcase, gently closed the door and left. Then, I replied with a sentence under Cliff Stewart's answer. No, she'll leave too. Cliff Stewart's call came the next afternoon. Probably he's been busy, hanging out with Cora Jordan all along, and just saw the divorce settlement I left behind. What do you mean? Cliff Stewart held back his anger. Paula Peter, you're going to divorce me. I was silent for a moment, and then said softly, yes, you signed the agreement. See when you have time, let's go through the formalities. Don't worry, I don't want much from you, the house and car are yours, but, before I could finish, Cliff Stewart interrupted me angrily. You're pretty much done. Isn't it because of that little incident last night? Are you here? His voice was a little sarcastic. Aren't you just angry that I wrote that answer? Yes, I was wrong to write that, but did I tell you that I hate people threatening me the most? Do you think that? I know, I didn't wait for him to finish, so I'm serious. Cliff Stewart, I resisted the soreness in my nose. I saw you in the hallway last night. Cliff Stewart was stunned, speechless. He was a little anxious to explain. No, listen to me. I cried and said, Cliff Stewart, in what mood did you write that answer? And when you trampled on my feelings, did you still look at me like a joke and think I was a fool? Is the love of you so worthless in your eyes? Cliff Stewart was so surprised that he stammered, I didn't mean that. I just drank too much that day. Paula Peter, don't think about it. Think more. I pulled the corners of my mouth. He had already written so clearly. What else did I have to think about? I lifted my head so that the tears could not fall. Cliff Stewart, let's get a divorce. On the phone that day, Cliff Stewart refused to divorce me. He just said let me think again. I don't care. I'll sue if it's a big deal. And I can get a divorce if I separate for 2 years. It's just a little longer. I can stand him not loving me, but I can't stand him trampling on my feelings like this. Probably because the roof leak happened to be rainy. A few days later, when I got off work, it suddenly rained, and my vision was not good, and the car in front of me suddenly slowed down, and my taxi chased after me all at once. My lower abdomen hit the metal corner of the notebook I was holding, and my forehead was pressed against the window, and the pain made my eyes go black, and my ears buzzed instantly. After being sent to the hospital for an examination, the doctor frowned slightly. Why don't you be careful when you are pregnant? You're already showing some signs of threatened miscarriage, and your baby is almost gone. I was stunned. Child. Seeing me like this, the doctor wondered. You don't know you're pregnant, do you? I nodded, feeling a little dazed to my lower abdomen. It's flat, there's no movement at all, and I can't imagine that there is a little life connected to my blood. My mind was a mess and I bit my lip. Bad fate. After all these years with Cliff Stewart, I've always wanted to have a baby. At that time, I always felt that having a child could keep his heart, and I kept pestering him for this. And even he would scold me, "You're not ashamed of a girl's family." Even so, I didn't succeed in having children. I couldn't help but smile wryly. Now that we're getting divorced, it's coming out of place. The wound on my head was still aching, and I was a little nauseous. The doctor examined it and said, "I can't rule out that it was a concussion, and I need to be hospitalized for observation. By the way, you still need someone to take care of you in this state, so let your family pay the fee when they come." I pursed my lips, thought about it and sent a message to Cliff Stewart, and seeing that he didn't reply, I dialed the phone again. It's quite embarrassing. Just let someone say cruel words to divorce, and immediately called someone. But I married far away, and I don't have any relatives or friends in the city, so he is the only one I can find. The phone rang for a long time before it was connected, and there was a faint sound of music and human voices over there. I endured the headache and said in a low voice, "Cliff Stewart, can you come with me?" I was in the hospital and the car was rear-ended. Cliff Stewart sneered coldly, "Paula Peter, can you make up a decent excuse?" I didn't. He interrupted me. "Didn't you have a lot of skills yesterday, and clamored for a divorce from me? Why regret it so quickly?" Cora Jordan's voice came from the other end. "Cliff Stewart, come here." Before hanging up the phone, Cliff Stewart left me with a sneer. "Paula Peter, I really look down on you. And then there's the icy electronic busy." I stared at my phone blankly, feeling as if my heart would not be beating. The headache and stomach ache were slowly moving away from me, and the only thing I could feel in the end was the dull pain in my heart. The doctor continued, "You go for a fetal injection in a while. The pregnancy is not very good, and it will be difficult to keep the child if it goes on like this. I looked up and said, "No, this kid, I don't want it." "Are you sure?" After a pause, I nodded. The tip of my tongue tingled bitterly, but I still said the sentence with difficulty, because I was not in good condition on the first day. The doctor made an appointment for surgery on the second day. Before the surgery, I turned on my phone and saw Cora Jordan's Moments in the revolving restaurant on the top of the TV station. She is making a wish on the cake in front of her, and Cliff Stewart is looking at her tenderly, smiling all over his face. The caption reads, "May I have you by my side every year to come?" There was a throbbing pain in my lower abdomen, and the pain quickly spread to all my limbs, and I couldn't help but bow slightly and hold on to the railing next to the bed. No wonder he wouldn't come to accompany me. It turned out that he was going to accompany Cora Jordan for her birthday. Of course, the birthday of the beloved woman is much more important than my unloved wife. The doctor came to him. "Your signature hasn't been signed yet. Hasn't your family come yet?" His eyes were dry, and he was obviously sour, but he couldn't shed tears. "I guess my tears are gone." I opened my mouth. "I have no family. Doctor, I'll sign it myself." The miscarriage was not a major operation, and I didn't feel any pain at all until I got off the operating table. I just felt empty, as if a part of my body was gone. The car accident and miscarriage caused me to take half a month off to recuperate at home. When I got better, I went downstairs to buy some food I liked and cooked at home to kill the time. I have to find something for myself to do, or emptiness will consume me. I went to a supermarket I used to go to, but when I was picking beef, a shrill voice came from behind me. "Isn't this Paula Peter? You're also visiting the supermarket?" I turned around and Cora Jordan was holding Cliff Stewart's hand, knowingly curling the corners of her mouth. "What's the matter?" I didn't want to say a word to her. I turned around and was about to leave. Someone grabbed my wrist, And Cliff Stewart looked at the gauze on my lap and frowned. Are you hurt? I scoffed. You don't remember just a few days. Why did Cliff Stewart develop Alzheimer's at such a young age? That day, Cliff Stewart was slightly stunned. I thought you lied to me. I laughed. Cliff Stewart was so busy celebrating Simone's birthday that he didn't have time to come. But we're all going to get divorced. And it's your freedom to be with who you like. And I don't care. Cliff Stewart looked at me with some surprise. I had never spoken to him like that, but he probably felt sorry for it, and patiently explained. No, that day, I watched as he grabbed my hand and shook it off. Get out of here, I said coldly. Cliff Stewart, it makes me sick to hear you talk. I didn't want to look at his uncomfortable face anymore and walked away. Cliff Stewart stared at me in astonishment behind me, the words still not uttered. When I came back in the evening, I received a WeChat message from Cliff Stewart. He hadn't messaged me in a long time, and when I scrolled up, the chats were almost all from me. Are you coming back for dinner tonight? I've prepared your favorite sweet and sour tenderloin tilde. I saw a nice stray cat on the side of the road today, with eyes that are a bit like you. Ha 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 ha. JPG. The last one was posted in the hospital that day. I was in a car accident. Can you come and stay with me? He never returned. I'm the only one left to sing a one-man show stupidly. It's the first time I've sent me a message today. Cliff Stewart explains. It was Cora Jordan who told me to go when she said that there was no one to accompany her for her birthday when she returned home. And I have nothing to do with her. Don't get me wrong. I don't know if he was stimulated by something, but he gave me a soft suit for the first time. I was wrong not to go to the hospital to accompany you that day, and it won't be like this in the future. I suddenly felt a little ridiculous. With Cliff Stewart, it seems like everything is wrong. People are wrong. Time is wrong. Everything is wrong. I waited so long for his explanation and didn't wait, and now I don't need to. But he rushed to find me. How ridiculous. It seems that we are not born to be together. I used to force it, and now I finally taste the bitter fruit of the twisted melon. A few days later, I received another call from Cliff Stewart. At midnight, his voice was hoarse, with a hint of impatience that suppressed the pain. Where do I put my stomach medicine? Cliff Stewart was busy with work in his early years, and he always ate without a meal, leaving him with a serious stomach problem. Over the years, I have carefully nourished his stomach. All his meals are made by me, and every ingredient in it is carefully prepared by me. In addition to Western medicine, he has been taking a kind of Chinese medicine, but there is a medicine that is difficult to match, and I always take a plane to the old Chinese medicine doctor to prepare a 3-month dose, and then come back to pack it and decoct it for him every day. I guess I'm gone these days, and no one will keep him in the pot for hours anymore to fry the medicine. Right. He's sick with stomach again. Right. I said with a blank face. I've finished eating. Cliff Stewart choked, paused for a moment and then said in some pain, why didn't you fill my medicine? Let's go with a little more this time. In the few years I have been with him, except when the doctor told me to rest and not drink medicine, I have never stopped his medicine for a day. On a cold day in the cold winter months, I took the plane directly to buy medicine, and waited outside the pharmacy at 4 o'clock in the morning, afraid that I would not have time to dispense the medicine. But now, on what footing does he demand of me? I said coldly, are you in the water in your brain? Go find Cora Jordan and match you. Before I could finish speaking, I hung up the phone directly. And by the way, I blocked all his ways one by one. I thought it was going to be like this, but the next day, Cliff Stewart came to see me. He stood on the side of the road, wearing a long black trench coat, as if he was shooting a male model in a fashion blockbuster. Colleagues passing by couldn't help but look at him and point excitedly. I was stunned for a moment, then frowned. When we were together before, I actually fantasized that he would pick me up from work, but he never liked to be in front of people with me. And he rejected me every time. Now that we're all going to get divorced, what's he doing here? Seeing me, Cliff Stewart strode over and grabbed me by the arm. He was displeased. Why did you hang up on me last night? I looked at him. He was really confused and dissatisfied. It seemed that I was just singing a one-man show from beginning to end, and he was always out of the way. I suddenly felt very tired, and my heart welled up with an indescribable disgust. I shook his hand away. We're already getting divorced, and I don't think there's any need for us to talk to each other again. He wrinkled his eyebrows. Divorce? Are you still angry about Cora Jordan? I've already told you that we have nothing else to do with each other. Can you please stop being so vexatious? I looked at this man I had loved for so many years, and suddenly my chest was filled with incomparable anger. At this point, he was still calling that woman Cora Jordan, and telling me that they had nothing to do with each other. He still thinks I'm being vexatious. Didn't he know that I was going to be angry? Didn't he know that he shouldn't have said that? No, Cliff Stewart is a mall goblin, and he knows all too well what to say on any occasion. He just doesn't care. He just thinks I'm like a dog, no matter what he says to hurt me wantonly. How he abandons me, looks down on me. I will wag my tail around him and won't leave. He just thinks that I don't deserve a little bit of his attention. The roar of rage burned my sanity to the ground, and I suddenly couldn't take it anymore, and slapped him in the face. Smack! I didn't have the slightest strength, and the slap was steady and hard, slapping Cliff Stewart off the shoulder. His eyes widened for a moment, motionless, and he froze there in shock. You! Just then, Cora Jordan suddenly strode behind him, frowning. Cliff Stewart, why are you here? She turned to me again, her expression suddenly abrupt, almost a little disdainful. Paula Peter, can you please stop pestering Cliff Stewart? The person he likes has always been me. If you hadn't intervened, maybe we would have gotten married a long time ago. And now it's now. Don't you still want to let him go? Can you make a face? Cora Jordan's company is near here, and it is estimated that she has just gotten off work. So it's really a bad fate, and the three of us actually bumped into each other. Her words successfully attracted the attention of nearby passers-by, and I could already see someone pouting quietly while taking pictures. It turned out to be a junior. It's really shameless. The original partner is so beautiful, and he dares to come to entangle. It's really not a force at all. I clenched my fists, endured and endured. And finally I couldn't hold back, and gave Cora Jordan a slap too. This slap accumulated all my anger. She was blinded by me, came back to her senses and was furious. And she didn't care about any image, so she rushed up and yelled, "You dare to hit me! You dare to hit me!" I used to subconsciously endure it because I loved Cliff Stewart, and I didn't want to upset him. I always feel that as long as I am good to him, and always be by his side, he will always see me one day for 5 or 10 years. But now I understand that you can't get love if you move yourself. Love is a very selfish thing. Just like he loves Cora Jordan. She doesn't have to do anything. She can be remembered by him for so many years. And I humbled him to the dust. And if he doesn't love me, he doesn't love me. As soon as I grabbed Cora Jordan's wrist, I said word by word, "First of all, I didn't get involved with the two of you. We were together a year after you broke up. Secondly, now that we are not divorced, we are legally husband and wife. And it is you who intervene in other people's feelings. In the end, I don't know why you are so arrogant. You are obviously a junior who disrupts other people's marriages, and you dare to make a big deal about me, the original partner. Could it be that this is what you call face? If that's how you want to be faced, then I really can't learn it." I majored in law in college, and the more angry I was, the clearer my organization became. The people around were shocked. It turns out that this is Xiao San, so how dare she be so arrogant? Speechless. Are the current juniors so shameless? Post her on the internet and make her angry. The junior should be damned. Cora Jordan glanced around, gritted her teeth, and changed her face as she looked at Cliff Stewart. With tears in her eyes, she pitifully grabbed the corner of his clothes and said in a trembling voice, "Cliff Stewart, she hit me. Did you just watch her beat me? You're in love with me, aren't you? You say, she's got in with us." I sneered. "You don't have to play this tea with me. I just hit him too. And if you have a kind, you can let him help you fight back." Cliff Stewart was silent, and broke Cora Jordan's hand in shock. "I think maybe you misunderstood. I love my wife, and I have no idea of divorce at the moment. I'm sorry, Cora Jordan. Am I mistaken?" Her eyes widened and she took a step back in disbelief. "What were those before that? You obviously said that you couldn't let me go, and it was you who kissed me, and you were with me on my birthday when she was in the hospital. Now you're telling me I misunderstood." "Cliff Stewart, and you're still not a man," Cliff Stewart said softly. "I'll admit it, I had some thoughts about you before, but I thought clearly. It was just the unwillingness of the previous years. Paula, Peter and I have been very good all these years, and I'm sorry for you." Cora Jordan covered her mouth, tears falling from her red and swollen eyes. "Animals." Moments later, she slapped Cliff Stewart in the face, couldn't hold it anymore, and ran away crying. "I really don't want to be pointed at like a monkey anymore," and turn around and leave. Cliff Stewart tried to stop me again, but I broke free. I said with a blank face, "Find a time. Let's go through the formalities." He gritted his teeth. "I won't divorce you." I shrugged. "If you feel free, then I'll wait to sue after 2 years of separation." Then I got in the car, got off the accelerator and drove straight in front of him. Our relationship has become a joke to this day. Actually, I believe that Cliff Stewart really found that he didn't fit in with me after leaving, because I have taken care of him so well inside and out over the years. Every shirt I ironed, every meal that suited his taste, every mouthful of medicine he took care of, and he never had to worry about things big and small at home. And for me, he doesn't have to remember all the anniversaries, even my birthday. He knows that I won't be angry with him. Now that I'm gone, who else can he find who loves him so wholeheartedly? Of course, he will panic, and will subconsciously draw a line with Cora Jordan, and want to return to his comfort zone. But I don't want to be a fool who just waits. When he fell in love with someone else, he left me mercilessly. When he's had enough, he'll come back to me like I'm just a dog that comes and goes. As I lay on that operating table, I wept and humbly begged him countless times to come and see me. Even just a glance keeps me from being lonely and scared crazy at that most bloody time. But he wouldn't even give me a chance to deceive myself. I didn't pay much attention to what happened that day, but I didn't expect that, when I went to work a few days later, my colleague suddenly found me and handed me the phone. "Paula, Peter. Isn't this you?" I was stunned and looked at the phone screen. Downstairs in the familiar company, Cliff Stewart and Cora Jordan were arguing. The video was playing when I slapped Cora Jordan and scolded her for being a junior. The barrage and comments are going crazy, and it is estimated that there are tens of thousands, densely packed. "This junior is too shameless. Right, meddle in others, and dare to confront the original pair. You deserve to be beaten. Ha ha ha. The original young lady is so handsome. I love it. Let's let the bullets fly for a while." She said, "You will believe it. I'm the only one who found out that this man is really handsome. It's better looking than a star. No wonder the 2 young ladies who are so beautiful are competing for him." Upstairs, 3 views follow the facial features. "Die to me for a cheating scumbag, no matter how handsome you look." Probably because Cliff Stewart and Cora Jordan are both very good looking, and the video actually rushed to the top of the hot search. Cora Jordan and Cliff Stewart were simply scolded. Cliff Stewart was okay. He didn't use Weibo much, but the Zhihu answer was turned out, and he was scolded as a scumbag with a card below. Cora Jordan is miserable. She originally liked to post daily on Weibo, But now she was directly targeted and blasted, and there were tens of thousands of scolding her for being shameless. It is estimated that she panicked for a while, and she actually made a stupid move. Originally, netizens didn't have a good memory. As long as she pretended to be dead for a while, the matter would pass. As a result, she was in a hurry to defend herself, and even took out a photo and chat history with Cliff Stewart before, and the words were that they were originally a couple, and they broke up after I intervened, and she was not a junior. It's a pity that netizens didn't buy her account. Cora Jordan, you're still lying at this point. Obviously, you broke up with Cliff Stewart after you went abroad, and Paula Peter was with Cliff Stewart after a year, and we all know this. You're really shameless to open the door for shamelessness. Shameless to get home. Cliff Stewart broke up with you. Does he still have to defend you? The people who were with him were all involved in you, right? Do you want to be shameless? Cora Jordan's Weibo that broke up before was also turned over, and she herself wrote at the time, "Love is no match for distance, and you will never be there when you are needed." This Weibo confirmed that the two of them broke up because of a long-distance relationship, and they had nothing to do with me. The popularity of the farce has risen to a new height, and she is known as the most shameless junior because of her scolding with netizens in the comment area, and her personal information has been picked up. Even her graduation thesis from college was found to be faked, and the school had to cancel her degree certificate in the face of pressure. The company that hired her with a high salary also fired her. For a while, Cora Jordan was completely reduced to a street rat, and almost everyone shouted and beat her. Cliff Stewart managed to steal during this incident, and apart from being scolded a few times at the beginning, there was nothing to do. He can still call me when he has time to change his number. Now Cora Jordan has paid the price. I've been scolded too, and I've got everything you wanted. Paula Peter, come back. I was so disgusted that I hung up, but Cliff Stewart seemed to be addicted to it, and kept pestering me. It wasn't until 3 months later that he slowly stopped coming. I thought he had figured it out, but I got a call from his secretary. "Mom, Cliff Stewart refuses to have surgery, so come and persuade him." At first, I thought that he was trying to force me to go back, but the secretary's voice changed. "Cliff Stewart has stomach cancer. It's already in the middle stage, and the doctor said it's too late if he doesn't have surgery, so come on." I was startled, hung up the phone, hesitated for a moment and went to the hospital anyway. As soon as I arrived at the hospital, the secretary said to me with a pale face, "After you left, Cliff Stewart kept day and night reversed, eating a meal when he remembered it, refusing to take it if he couldn't remember, and the medicine stopped. He didn't sleep at night, he smoked on the balcony all night, he had a bad stomach, and he often broke out in a cold sweat because of the pain, and then he vomited blood. He wiped his face. As a result, I came to diagnose stomach cancer today, and Cliff Stewart doesn't know what's wrong. He sat there for a long time, and he refused to agree to surgery, so he asked me to call you, and call you." I walked into the room and Cliff Stewart was sitting by the window looking out. Seeing me come in, he turned his head and smiled. "You're here." I barely recognized him after months of not seeing him. Cliff Stewart used to like fitness very much, and he belonged to the one who looked thin and stripped with meat. But now the man who is more than 1.8 meters old has lost weight, and his clothes are empty on his body. I frowned. "What the hell do you want to do?" Cliff Stewart took out a cigarette and lit it, ignoring the no smoking sign on the wall, and took a deep breath. He said to the horse's mouth, "Paula Peter, I actually meant that. When I wrote that answer, I really didn't like you, so this marriage wasn't interesting." I couldn't help but clench my fists. "You called me here to humiliate me." "It's not," he continued. "I was actually really excited when I first saw Cora Jordan. I really liked her when I was younger. She was beautiful, she was good, she was on par with me. I really didn't think I could let her go. But it's really strange that after I got in touch with her, I found that I wasn't as happy as I thought. I can't help but think of you and compare her to you. When we eat together, she orders a spicy dish, and I will think that it is you. I will definitely not order such a spicy dish. You know I can't eat spicy. When my stomach hurts, she's in a hurry, and I think if you're here, I'll find medicine for me right away. No, if it were you, you wouldn't have made my stomach ache at all. She's very good and funny, but when I'm with her, I can't help but get distracted, and I always think, what are you doing now? I interrupted him. I'm in the hospital. Cliff Stewart froze and jerked her head up. After my car accident, the doctor asked me if I wanted to have a baby. I wanted to call you, but I couldn't get through. And later I found out that you were celebrating Cora Jordan's birthday. I felt a hint of pain and revenge. So, while you and she were celebrating your birthday, in the revolving restaurant on TV, I was lying alone on the operating table. Cliff Stewart's bloodless face turned gray inch by inch, and the cigarette butt burned to his fingertips. But he didn't seem to feel it, and he didn't move. After a long time, he slowly lowered his head and took a hard puff of his cigarette. His fingers trembled terribly. The soot fell to the ground, and he said hoarsely, no wonder you won't come back. During the time I was separated from you, I couldn't help but think of the past. Back then, when I came back, you always blushed and kissed me, and there would be your cooked food on the table. I didn't think there was anything at the time, but now that I think about it, I was looking forward to going home. It turned out that I had already gotten what I wanted, and I had fallen in love with you a long time ago, but I couldn't see it clearly. Paula Peter, I know I'm sorry for you, and now I know how much I've hurt you. He reddened. Can you give me a chance to make it up to you? I said coldly. Cliff Stewart, do you love me? Do you love me? Or is it the feeling that someone always puts you first? Do you want me to go back? Or do you want me to continue to take care of you as before? I tugged at the corners of my mouth. At the end of the day, you'll always love yourself. When Cora Jordan can give you something new, you don't hesitate to abandon me and go with her. Don't you know I'm going to be sad and sad? Of course you know, but you don't care. Later, I found out that she couldn't serve you as meticulously as I did, and you began to think of me. To put it bluntly, you have just been irresponsibly pursuing what you like. Love. You deserve to say love too. Don't disgust me. Cliff Stewart's eyes fell to me as I spoke. He was silent for a long time. You don't like to do the surgery. It's just that now you and I are still legally married, and I have to sign it for you when the time comes. With that, I turned to leave. Just before I walked out of the room door, Cliff Stewart spoke. Paula Peter, you're right. Actually, I'm just an unscrupulous selfish villain. You serve me wholeheartedly, but all I leave you with is harm. I really don't deserve you. But there's only one sentence I'm not lying. His voice seemed to come from far, far away. I really love you. I tilted my head, didn't speak, and pushed the door open. I've been waiting for this sentence for too long. So long that even if I hear it now, the emotions that remain in my body will still make my eyes red in an instant. But I'm not going back. I've finally figured out now that people who don't love themselves will never deserve love. The next time we heard from Cliff Stewart was 2 months later. At that time, I had already started a new life, and I forced myself to delete and throw away everything related to him. I have loved him for too long, and this habit has become a part of my body, and it is a bloody pain to tear it off. But I have to move on. Just as I was trying to forget all this, his secretary called. Cliff Stewart's surgery was a success, but the doctor said it was. There's no way to extend it for long, and we're going to go abroad for treatment. Cliff Stewart told you, knowing you didn't want to talk to him. He said he'd be leaving the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, I'll get a divorce certificate with you. I was stunned. Cliff Stewart has always disagreed with the divorce, and I have almost not thought about it anymore. Just waiting for the lawsuit to be filed 2 years later. Unexpectedly, he suddenly agreed. Goodbye, Cliff Stewart. He's almost a skeleton of bones, sitting in a wheelchair, and he will fall when the wind blows. Compared with the high-spirited man at the beginning, it is simply not the same person. He didn't dwell on it anymore, just handed me the divorce agreement. Let's see, you'll finally be able to get rid of me. I flipped through it and found that he had left me almost all of his assets and money. I frowned. I don't want you to have so much money. I said half and half at the time. Keep it. It's useless for me to take it, and it won't take long. He smiled with relief. I have caused you a lot of trouble before, so this should be my insignificant compensation. Perhaps life and death can really change a person completely. And Cliff Stewart has become completely different from what he used to be. And he is much more peaceful. We got the certificate without any problems. When I came out, I was still a little emotional. It was here that I married this man I had loved for so many years with joy, thinking that we would be happy for the rest of our lives. But I didn't expect that in just 3 years, everything would be different. Then I'll go first. Cliff Stewart gripped the little book in his hand tightly and waved at me. I don't know if I'm mistaken, but his eyes seemed to be slightly red. Tomorrow I will go to United States. I don't know if I can see each other again in this life, and you will have to take good care of yourself in the future. I should hate this man in front of me. He left me bruised all over my body, but at this moment, I only felt that my eyes were sour, and a helpless bitterness spread in my mouth. Goodbye. He was pushed away by his secretary, and didn't forget to wave at me. Paula Peter, you want to be happy. I wiped the corners of my eyes, but finally held back and didn't speak. What should be said and what should not be said, I have said it all over the years. In the end, there was nothing left to say. Maybe for us, that's the best ending. Let's go our separate ways here and go our separate ways. I turned away, and we just turned away with our backs to each other, until finally it was no longer visible. The sun was really good today, so good that it was a little dazzling, and as I walked, it was a blur in front of me, but I won't look back. Even if it hurts, I'm going to keep going. I meditated in my heart. Goodbye, the first half of my life. Goodbye, Cliff Stewart. The end.